Before we start talking about growing tomatillos, I want to talk about eating tomatillos. For lunch today, I've got this incredibly fancy frozen burrito from Costco, bean, rice, and cheese. It's their organic frozen burrito, and it's one of our family favorites for convenience foods. And I have this jar of salsa verde that I canned last November out of homegrown tomatillos. Now, what I mainly use tomatillos for are salsa verde and enchilada sauce. Here, I'm just going to be eating my burrito with enchilada sauce and really enjoying it for my lunch. The reason why I wanted to talk about how I like to eat my tomatillos first does fit with my tips for growing tomatillos. So when our family eats tomatillos, we don't generally eat them fresh right off the plant. What I like to do is turn them into some sort of preserved sauce and eat them that way. So for me, it's not really important to have tomatillos as soon as possible as I can in the growing season, somewhat like a cherry tomato where I just want to eat that cherry tomato fresh right off the vine. I don't mind waiting until later in the season until the tomatillos have fully grown and I've harvested them all, and I will make up a big batch of preserved tomatillos, whether it's enchilada sauce or salsa verde. So why that's important to me today and what my brain's thinking through is that look how tiny these are. So these tomatillos are pretty tiny. My tomatoes right now are probably all about this tall. Now, I got behind in starting some of my plants this year, specifically some of the tomatoes, tomatillos, and peppers, because I am having another plant sale and I just ran out of space for a period of time. So what I did was that I put a bunch of tomatillo seeds in a bulk seed starting container is what I'm going to be calling it. And I saw this tip off of Roots and Refuge, Jess. This is how she starts a lot of her tomatoes. So I put a bunch of seeds in a 3.5-inch pot and just let them germinate in that pot to save me space instead of seeding out this whole tray and germinating them that way. That allowed me to, in the space of one of these trays, I was able to germinate tomatillos, multiple varieties of tomatoes. So I let them stay in that container a little too long. Here is a look at what I did next when I took them out of the container and how I got them potted up into these.
Here are the tomatillos that I started on March 9th. I ran out of room to start each of these individually, so I did this, what I'm calling a bulk start. I learned this trick from Jess on Roots and Refuge. And this is my first year trying sowing. I sowed tomatillos and tomatoes like this. So today what I'm doing is taking these and up potting them. And I'm still out of room, so I'm going to up pot them into 6 cell trays and have about 36 per 10 by 20 flat. This is my up potting station here in the garage. I've got my gorilla cart with this tote full of soil in here. I've got my makeshift planting table, and then I've got my planting or my workbench over here that I use to move off my finished products. So what I'm doing here is potting up the tomatillos, and they are in this 3-inch pot right now. And the first thing that I'm going to do is to take them out of their pot very gently. And now I've got a solid root mass here with all my plants. So what I'm going to do is, over my tub of soil here, I'm going to gently dislodge a lot of the soil so that it lets the roots kind of let go of the soil and of each other so that I can separate them. Right now they are pretty firmly attached to each other, so if I were to try to pull one out, it would probably break its roots. So what I'm going to start doing is just gently tapping away as much soil as I can, and I can use the edge of my box here It helps to put your hand all the way around your seedlings and kind of protect them while you're knocking the soil off. Now, at this point in time, we can actually gently pull these apart. I'm going to start by pulling them apart in larger clumps to see kind of where they naturally split apart. Can do the pull and shake. Helps everybody kind of let go of each other. Whoop. All right. And then I'm just going to break these down into smaller chunks. They feel like I can start separating them individually now. So I wouldn't pull all the way from the top of your seedling. Pull down at the base of the stem and where the roots first start. And that's going to help give you some support so you can not break off as many roots. So that one has a pretty good root system. Not all those roots are going to be attached to the plant. Some of those are dead ones from other plants, but hey, I'm calling that a good one. Next up, they'll be going in here.
Hey, by the way, if we haven't met before, I'm Allison, and this is my family's Puget Sound garden life. Thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying. Let's talk about how I started my Tomatillo seeds and what I'm going to be doing next with these and some other growing tips I have for you. So this variety of Tomatillo is a Toma Verde. It looks like that, just a green Tomatillo. And I planted a few of that seed, which is a 75 to 90 day maturity. And then I also have this Grande Rio Verde from True Leaf Market, which is an 80 to 89 day tomatillo. So tomatillo seeds are really similar to tomato seeds, and you treat them the same way when you're planting them. One difference about the tomatillo seeds is that they are a lot smaller. I'm going to show you the difference between these tomatillo seeds and these vintage wine tomato seeds. On the left here are the tomatillo seeds. You can tell they are a lot smaller. They are also a little bit shinier and less fuzzy than these tomato seeds that are on the right. So when you seed them, you're going to plant them very similarly, except for perhaps you might do these a little bit more shallow because these seeds are larger, and the depth you plant the seeds always going to be based on the size of the seed. So I sprinkled these into a little square container, covered them with some soil, and then I got my tomatillo starts. The little baby girl goat, her name's Ruby. Oh, she's catching up now. She just had a big old blob of hay on her back and was standing there crying because her mama and her brother had walked away and she just couldn't walk with all that hay on her back. Anyways, if you haven't had a chance to start your own tomatillo seeds, depending on where you live, you could probably even start some tomatillo seeds now and still have plenty of time to get a good harvest of tomatillos to make yourself some salsa verde. Now, if you aren't interested in starting your own tomatillo seeds, or you just want to save some time and buy some starts, most nursery garden centers do have tomatillo starts. Not all do, and they might have a much fewer selection. Generally, there's only one variety, maybe a green or a purple, but you can find them if you look. So when you're purchasing your starts, or when you're starting your seeds, you're going to want to make sure that you buy or grow at least 2 tomatillo plants. They need to cross-pollinate for them to be able to fertilize and set fruit. So that's really important. So this year, instead of selling my tomatillos at my plant sale in 3.5-inch square pots and selling them individually, I'm going to be selling them in 6-packs. And there's 2 reasons for that. People are going to need at least one other tomatillo, so why not have 6? Am I right? But also, Because they're small, I just want people to have a little bit more value for what they're getting. So they're going to have 6 smaller plants instead of 1 bigger plant. So now that you know you have to grow 2 tomatillo plants, you're going to treat these tomatillo plants just like you would a tomato plant. Planting your tomatillos is going to be super similar to planting your tomatoes. Now I know we're talking about tomatillos in this video, but I want to say a few things about tomatoes first. There's 2 types of tomato plants. You're going to have determinate tomato plants and indeterminate tomato plants. And the difference is that your determinate tomato plants are going to grow to a determined size, and then they're going to set all their fruit pretty much all at once. Might set a first harvest and then a second harvest. And then after that, the plants are going to be done fruiting for the year. An indeterminate tomato plant is going to continue growing and growing, setting fruit, growing, setting fruit, growing, and you're going to harvest your tomatoes over a longer period of time, and the plant is going to keep growing until it's killed by the first frost. So tomatillos, at least from what I have observed in the varieties I've grown, are more like a determinate tomato. That means they're going to grow, they're going to fruit, and you're going to have one big set of fruit, and then you can probably get a second harvest after that, and then they're going to be done pretty much. They can, however, keep producing up until the first frost. I just know that for me, since I'm getting them in so late, I'm probably only going to get 1 or 2 big harvests from these plants before that first frost. When you're planting your tomatillos, you want to make sure that you are going to plant them a little bit deeper than the level of where your start is, because just like a tomato plant, it can grow more roots off that stem. You're going to want to give it some good fertilizer. You're going to want to space these, I'd say at least 18 to 24 inches apart. They get really bushy, and they're going to need some sort of supportive structure, or else they're just going to flop on the ground and be a bush on the ground, which if you're okay with that, then it's no problem. In fact, that's how I grew mine last year, because I never got around to trellising them, and by the time I went to harvest these, it was actually pretty easy, because I just cut off the base, the stem at the base, and then picked up the entire plant off the ground so it wasn't woven into any sort of trellis, and brought them up here on this table and harvested them from the plant while on this table. So depending on what your garden, how it's laid out, how you're going to grow them, where you're going to grow them, if you want to trellis them or not, you're probably going to get some more fruit, and it'll be easier to pick your first sets of fruit if you give them a nice big trellis. And they do get really bushy, so whereas like a tomato, you're going to be pruning, or at least an indeterminate tomato, you're going to prune to kind of force it to grow up. A determinate tomato, or these tomatillos, you don't really want them to prune. You just want them to bush out and set all the fruits that they can, instead of keeping it pruned and longer and leaner style. Well, friends, I hope I have encouraged you to grow some tomatillos this year. If you are local in the Puget Sound area, I'm going to be having a plant sale on May 6th, and we'll have these babies up for sale. If you are not in my area, just head on to your local nursery, or if you're in the greater Puget Sound Pacific Northwest area, Fred Meyer always has tomatillos. I know that you can find some out there, and I'm really excited for you to grow them. Hopefully later this season, you're going to see in my garden all of my bountiful tomatillos, so that this fall I can make another round of salsa verde and enchilada sauce to keep our family's taste buds happy all winter long. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this and want to see more of our garden grow, please click the like and subscribe, and you can watch our garden grow over the 2023 growing season.